Hey guys, this is Yoda. This will be part 2 of my Vengeance Demon Hunter guide for Season 4, mostly for Mythic Plus. In part 1, we covered all of the embellishments, gear choices, stats, talents, all the build stuff. And in this section, we'll mostly be covering the gameplay, so how to gather packs, offensive rotation, and defensive rotation, and some tricks / do's and don'ts. And also we'll cover the disruption rotation. So first we'll cover gathering packs. This is how you start off every pull. Every pack has a different solution basically, but there are a few don'ts when you're gathering packs. So the first most important thing is that your group doesn't get aggro on the close packs. So let's say I'm just going to use this Feldraken room. Obviously, remember every dungeon is different, but there's going to be some rules you want to follow every time. So the packs closest to your group, like the packs you're running past or the ones that they're going to end at, you want to make sure that you have some initial aggro on every single mob in the pack, which means like if I just throw Glaive here at these 5 dummies, the Glaive is only going to hit 3 of them. It's not going to generate very much threat, and the other 2 are basically going to be free aggro. They're going to be running at your group. You don't want that. But if the pack is in the back, like let's say that 5 pack goes where this Dungeoneer's trading dummy is, then you know that's kind of more okay because you're gonna do like a Feldev or some other AoE global that could potentially catch these before they get to your group. But if you just like throw Glaive these 3 and then run past, then at least the 2 mobs that your Glaive didn't hit, plus you know potentially even the ones your Glaive did hit, are gonna start running at your healer. Anyone that's like pre-dotting or building their stacks or whatever is gonna get aggro, and they could potentially die, which is a disaster that you want to avoid. So the first rule is that any pack that you run past, you're gonna want to have at least some type of initial aggro on it, which can be, usually it's like an immolation aura, the initial hit, like as soon as you use it, like this, boom, it'll hit everything in the pack. And also Sigil of Flame can work. Sigil of Flame is a bit buggy, but as long as you touch the pack with something, like even your taunt, before you pull the pack, Sigil of Flame is just fine. Like let's say I taunt it and then Sigil of Flame, that'll count as aggro on all of them. So those are your 2 main tools for AoE aggro, and you can also use Legion Decree if you want. Although that is a relatively big damage loss, especially if you're playing Spirit Bomb builds. Alright, so those are the main rules. So sample gather could look like you would Fellblade, Immora, Spikes this pack, then jump between 2 packs, throw Glaive a couple of far packs, then Sigil Flame this. Once it's all running in, you want to use Feldev. Feldev is like serves a lot of purposes here. First of all, it'll top you up from the couple melees you tank from maybe this mob hitting you or a couple mobs you ran past. Secondly, Feldev does a lot of aggro as long as the mob was in combat before you cast Feldev. Like it's kind of buggy that way, but usually as long as mobs are running in, Feldev is good because it'll get aggro on them, it'll heal you to full. On top of that, it puts you in meta, so you're 50% more health, 200% more armor. Pretty hard to die in meta, so it gives you a nice buffer to start every pull. If it's a long gather, you could potentially like gather some of these packs, Feldev, and then like slowly walk with Immolation Aura running over here and pull like some more packs. Like I said, it completely depends on the dungeon, depends on how long the gather is, where all the packs are, what your group player playing with. So if you want to see more specifics, then I recommend just checking out some of my dungeon VODs that I have posted on the channel. Alright, so that's gathering. Next we'll go into the damage rotation. So for Vengeance Demon Hunter, assuming you're talented into Spirit Bomb, there are 2 rotations. There's a Spirit Bomb rotation and the Soul Cleave rotation. The Soul Cleave rotation you do on single target, or if you're not talented Spirit Bomb, you do it on any number of targets. Spirit Bomb rotation you're going to do on 2+ targets, as long as you're talented into it. And if you're playing Fiery Demise, you can do it in single target during Fiery Brand windows, but it's not required because it's a small damage gain. Alright, so we'll start off with the simple one, which is a Soul Cleave rotation. Actually, we're going to start off with some basics. So no matter what your rotation is, while you're playing with the Season 4 tier set, which is based around Sigil of Flame, you always want to maintain Sigil of Flame on as many targets as possible. And you also want to maintain Immolation Aura because you have this talent called Charred Flesh, where Immolation Aura extends the duration of your Firebrand and Sigil of Flame, and also just kind of does good damage too. So you want to maintain uptime on Immolation Aura and Sigil of Flame, 2 most important things. No matter what build you're playing, you always want to do that. So those are the basics. Next we'll go into the Soul Cleave rotation. So you're going to always maintain these, and with Soul Cleave rotation, you're primarily your rotation is based on Fury, so you're going to want to Fellblade off cooldown. Fellblade's a short cooldown and it gives you a lot of Fury. And then your other 2 real buttons are after these 3, right? Sigil of Flame, Immolation Aura, and Fellblade. Your other 2 buttons are Fracture and Soul Cleave. A lot of people make the mistake of just do like Fracture, Soul Cleave, 1, 2, 1, 2. That's not what you want to do with the Soul Cleave build. You actually want to build to 100 Fury and then dump it all at once. So obviously still use like your 3 buns off cooldown, but then you want to dump all the way down to 100. And then you rebuild back up to 100. Obviously, you don't want to overcap Fury because you don't want to lose Soul Cleaves. But yeah, you want to build and then spend like in windows. You don't want to just like 1, 2, 1, 2 because that'll be a damage loss. The logic behind that is that basically with Soul Crush, your frailties are stacking. You want to basically have them all stacked at the same time. It's kind of similar to a DPS popping their cooldowns at the same time. Except all of their cooldowns are named frailty and just buff your damage by like 2 to, I think it's 4%. Yeah, it's 4%. All of it stacks buff your damage by 4%, and you want them that all to like line up together. Also, if you're like playing super optimally for damage, then you would use the Hunt and Elysian Decree at the end of your dump. So you would be like build to 100, then spend all the way down, and that's when you would use Hunt and Elysian Decree. When you're on a boss, like, it's pretty reasonable to do that reliably, but if you're gathering packs, it's way more important for the gather to be smooth. So like if you have to use Hunt and Elysian Decree for the gather, then that's perfectly acceptable, and it's going to be a damage loss, but you know, it's whatever. It's better to have a clean gather. All right, so that's the Soul Cleave rotation, relatively simple. Next we're going to go into the Spirit Bomb rotation. So Spirit Bomb, your main resource is going to be souls. You're still limited a little bit by your Fury, but the resource that you're primarily like trying to generate and not overcap is souls. Like you overcap Fury all the time, but souls you really don't want to overcap with this build. So we'll go over the opener. The opener is much more important with the Spirit Bomb rotation than the Soul Cleave rotation. If you don't do this opener right, like you might as well just play no Spirit Bomb the whole time because most of the damage difference comes from this opener. There's a couple things about this that are important. Fracture generates 2 souls. If you're in meta, it generates 3. And Immolation Aura in AoE almost always generates 5 souls, or at least 4. And Elysian Decree generates 4 souls. It says it generates 3, but it generates 4 because of this talent, Soul Sigils. So yeah, those are things to keep in mind. Basically, you want to get as many Spirit Bombs off as possible in your Fiery Demise window. So Spirit Bomb does fire damage, and Fiery Demise makes all of your fire damage do 50% more during your Fiery Brand window. So basically, it'll look like this. You're going to enter the pack, do your Feldev, your Immora. Now we're at 5 souls, right? So we're going to Decree, Bomb, and then do the global that doesn't generate souls into Bomb again. Then build the 5 souls again. Decree, Bomb, Fellblade, Bomb. Then you can Immora, Bomb again. And then, so that's basically that's the whole opener, assuming I use Firebrand. And then after that, it's just maintenance. So if you're in meta, you want to spend souls at 3 souls. If you're not in meta, then you spend at 4. You want to use Fellblade. So in the Soul Cleave build, Fellblade was used off cooldown to generate Fury for more Soul Cleaves. In the Spirit Bomb build, you're overcapping Fury anyway a lot, so it's more important to save your Fellblade so that you can use Spirit Bomb in a situation where you wouldn't otherwise be able to use Spirit Bomb. Like if you're at 20 Fury and 5 souls, then Fellblade is the way that you would use Spirit Bomb there instead of Fracture, because if you use Fracture, then you're overcapping souls. So we'll do that one more time with Firebrand this time. So let's say you're running around, you're gathering mobs, Fellblade this, Immora, jump in, Feldev, Fiery Brand, build to 5, Decree, Bomb, Fellblade if you have a reset into Bomb. You can Immora back to 5. If I had another Decree, I would double Bomb again here. But yeah, you get the idea. Basically, don't overcap souls. Make sure you're not overcapping from Decree, because the souls it generates are not generated immediately. Like you have to Decree, then use a global between, so that's a mistake a lot of people make. And try to be at low souls when you use Immolation Aura. Basically, mostly you want to be Immolation Aura off cooldown, so you're going to be spending souls before it comes off cooldown. That's the main way you take advantage of that. So yeah, that's the Spirit Bomb rotation. In the Spirit Bomb rotation, you do Soul Cleave, by the way. I'll give you an example. So let's say you're max souls, and then you Sigil of Flame. Now you're at 105 Fury, and you have no souls. In this situation, it's okay to use Soul Cleave. So that about covers it. Obviously, Feldev does do some damage, and the Hunt does damage, but I'm reserving those mostly for gathering tools or aggro, so I wouldn't use them offensively. On a boss, obviously you can just send them off cooldown, especially because you're probably doing Soul Cleave rotation on the boss. Defensively, I find it better to pool Feldev in meta for when you actually need it. And that is a good transition into the defensive rotation. So keep in mind, the defensive rotation changes depending on your talents. A lot of the time you won't be playing 2 spike talents, or maybe you always play 2 spike talents. So, and also what you're fighting can hurt you in different ways, so you may need to change your rotation based on what you're fighting. But I can show you the basics here. So as always, you're going to want to maintain Immolation Aura, Sigil of Flame, which gives you parry, gives you magic DR. Then you're going to want to, like I said, on the gather, you want to use Feldev on the gather instantly. And then as soon as you Feldev, you can apply Fiery Brand already. So if you notice, by the time Fiery Brand actually spreads to everything, we're already out of meta. So we're keeping Fiery Brand up. While you're in Fiery Brand, you're probably going to be spamming a lot of decrees, especially with Spirit Bomb rotation. So you're going to be healing yourself a lot. That's a lot of soul gen. So it's better not to overlap Fiery Brand with meta. And if you're playing only one spike talent, it's better not to overlap even with spikes. So during Fiery Brand, if you're only playing one spike talent, I don't even use spikes unless I have like 2 charges and I know I'll get them back. That's a good time to let your spike charges come back. So after Fiery Brand is over, oftentimes you're going to be stuck with just spikes. So you'll have spikes, Sigil, and Immolation Aura running. This may not be enough on a lot of packs, so if it's not enough, then you might have to meta. You might have to use Tank Trinket. If you're wearing Rage Heart, you might have to call External, and worst case, you can just kite. You can just grip the mobs and then run around in a circle to kite them. So basically, the biggest mistakes you can make in defensive rotation is A, having no mitigation at all. If you have no spikes, no brand, and no meta, then you're basically at the mercy of parries. And this is where you hear all these videos, oh my god, I didn't parry and died. Well, guess what? It's probably because you didn't have mitigation up. So yeah, always have either meta, Fire Brand, or Demon Spikes up. If you don't have any of those up, then you need to have external. If you don't have external, then you need to run away. Or hopefully the pack just doesn't hurt that much and you can get away with it. So once again, you want to start the pack with Feldev pretty much always into Insta Fire Brand. If you're not playing Fire Brand spread, then you can kind of ignore that. And then for the rest of the pack, you're basically just maintaining spikes. And if it's a hard pack, you push meta. That's pretty much it. So your weakest points in your defensive rotation are when Fiery Brand is off and when Feldev is off and you're on spikes only, or if you're playing low spike talents, when you have, like, if you have literally nothing, then you have to run away. But also keep in mind that just spikes alone is sometimes not enough, especially if you're fighting packs with a bunch of casters that are gonna, like, casting bolts on you, then you can weave your Sigil of Silence in. Usually, if their bolts are being casted on you, then you want to rely on your Fire Brand on pull, and then silence when your Fire Brand is falling off. Okay, so that's the gathering, offensive and defensive. Next, we're going to cover the disruption rotation. So this is what a lot of people see as the most OP part about Vengeance Demon Hunter. So it's important to get this at least somewhat right. First of all, keep in mind that you have allies, and they can help you out with disruption. Like if you have a Moonkin, they have Beam. If you have an Evoker, they have a Pressing Roar. Generally, I find you want to use at least Grip, Silence, and 1 Misery before your allies help out. Yeah, so that's usually how you want to do it. So you're going to start. So you start with Feldev, and you put up Brand, do the other sigils. Then let's say all the mobs are running in, you do Grip, Silence. So the mobs aren't doing anything for now. You can do like your Spirit Bomb opener right now. Then once your silence is falling off, you can Misery. Then you can silence again. And the idea is, while the silence is running, you don't have to do anything again. After this silence, you're gonna be out of silences, right? So you're gonna have to do your own stops like Misery, Stun, and then hopefully your group helps you out a bit. You have like 10 seconds here of a gap. Once that gap, actually it's more like 4 seconds until your chains comes back. Once your chains come back, you can chain silence again for 3rd silence. So basically what it looks like is you do your first 3 stops, which are Grip, Silence, and then Misery after silence, and then either your group beams or you silence again after that. To get your 3rd silence back, you need your group's help. There's no amount of sigils usually that you can use between your 2nd and 3rd silence that'll get your 3rd silence back in time. So usually what it looks like is you'll do like a bunch of stops at the beginning, like Grip, Misery, Silence, and then silence again, either with, usually the 2nd silence is with a Pressing Roar. After that silence ends, you have like your Chaos Nova to fill in, but you're kind of reliant on a group AoE stop rotation from that point on until you get to your 3rd silence, and your 3rd silence can also come after your 2nd grip. So that's a disruption. Usually if you play this right, mobs will be kind of dead before you even get to use your 3rd silence, and if you don't have to use it, that's fine, because you can save it like the next pack basically. Because if you use your 3rd silence, you're going to notice that your sigils are like omega recharging. You can't really do it 2 packs in a row. So that is the disruption rotation. Obviously, you know, like I said before, every dungeon is different. They all require their own unique solutions, but these are just some basics. Hopefully, if you're just learning VDH, this gives you a baseline to work with, to at least start off with. If you want to see what I actually do in every dungeon, like I said, I do have VODs posted on the channel. Be sure to check them out. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Peace.